What's up, guys? Pixels here, and today we are going to be doing an Evil Dead movies and TV show tier list. I've never done this before, surprisingly, with all the Evil Dead the game coverage and stuff that I have done on my channel. I'm a huge Ash fan. I've got, loads of props from the TV show. I've got a big chainsaw. I've got a metal poster behind me of Army of Darkness. So I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. I do miss the game massively, and maybe sometime in the future we'll see more Evil Dead games coming out, but this video is about obviously the media itself, the source material, and where everything stems from. So we're going to start in order. I'm going to try and pick from what I remember from the TV show posters. I think I know which ones are which, so let's start in order. And anyway, so this is Evil Dead 1. This is where it all began. I've only actually watched this one once. Surprisingly, it's probably my least. Although, actually, no, the other movies as well. Some of the ones I've only watched one time. Despite being a huge Evil Dead fan, I've seen all the other stuff a lot of times. But with Evil Dead 1, I've only seen one time. I'm probably going to put a B tier. It's an okay movie. I feel like the movie itself is alright. I feel like it gets its bump up in the grades a lot, with it being the story behind how it was made rather than the actual movie itself. Although it is fun, it is an enjoyable watch. I don't think it belongs any higher than B tier personally. I know it's like some other people's favorites, but for me, I think B tier is about right. Like I said, it probably gets its hype the most from its backstory. I don't really remember it all too well. There's some sections I do remember. It was years ago when I did watch it, but it didn't leave a lasting impression like the other movies and the TV show did. So B tier for me, like I said, I think that's probably about the right spot for the first one. Evil Dead 2, that goes straight into S tier. Probably the most, in my opinion, the most iconic Evil Dead movie out there. There's Army of Darkness, of course, as well to go along with it, but I think Evil Dead 2 is a lot more iconic just because it was this is where Ash was born. I don't want to give out spoilers, but there's certain things that happen in the movie, obviously, with Ash that kind of create him. That's how Ash becomes this sort of parody horror, that type of character, the comedian that he is while he's facing deadites and demons and stuff like that. I feel like this is what creates him. This is his origin story in Evil Dead 2. They sort of like glazed over Evil Dead 1 with Evil Dead 2, and they kind of rewrote a lot of stuff just because of licensing issues and everything. They couldn't use stuff from Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2, so they had to go back and re-record things. There's just a ton of stuff like that happened with the Evil Dead franchise. But there's just so many fun moments in Evil Dead 2. Obviously, when he's losing his sanity and he's, bouncing around in the cabin. The hand, him losing his hand, pretty much. I said I wasn't going to spoil anything, but yeah, there's just so many good moments in Evil Dead 2 that this is why it's my favorite Evil Dead movie. Army of Darkness. I never used to really like Army of Darkness that much, but the more I watched it, the more I enjoy it more and more. You know what I mean? It's just one of those movies where it kind of grows on you as the more you watch it. And there's just a lot of funny stuff behind the scenes with Army of Darkness. They never could get, they really couldn't get that, even though it's rated like M, or, M for mature or whatever, or it's rated R rated, if you want to call it that. I don't know what the rating is in the States exactly, but it would be 18 rated in the UK. If you wanted it, like, it's supposed to be that. Funny thing is, there actually isn't any blood really in the movie itself. The only bit of blood that you see is when it comes out of the pit, and that's it really. There's like really no blood in the movie. It's more of a comedy horror again, but it's really toned down on the blood and the gore and everything that you have been used to in Evil Dead 2 and Evil Dead 1. So that's a really funny thing. What Bruce Campbell talks about with that is that he didn't understand why it was like an R-rated movie, because yeah, it was Army of Darkness and it's Evil Dead, but it didn't really have that gore attached to it. And on top of that, he fought a lot with MGM about the name, because Army of Darkness, hasn't got the Evil Dead attached to it. So they actually, Bruce wanted to call it Medieval Dead, and Sam Raimi and them, but Obviously that didn't happen. It then became Army of Darkness. I think Medieval Dead would have been a really interesting title. But yeah, it's probably for me an A tier movie. I wouldn't say it's as good as Evil Dead 2. But it is really enjoyable. There's a lot of fun moments, of course, with the little Ashes, Evil Ash, and everything like that in that movie. It's a very fun watch and enjoyable. So yeah, I think A tier for that one. Okay, so what came out after Army of Darkness was probably the remake with Mia. I don't think this was terrible, honestly. Again, it's another one I've only watched one time, but it's memorable. You know, I do remember a lot of scenes from it. I remember Eric and Mia and Eric getting the shit kicked out of them. The entire movie was just hilarious. You've got David, of course, as well. I feel like the problem is it was all building up to that big climax at the end too much. You know, there wasn't really... It felt more like a drug trip experience situation with Mia up until the end when she actually becomes like a badass. I do think Mia had potential to be a more interesting character and to see her more in the Evil Dead franchise and stuff. We obviously didn't see her until the game came out, so I think for me it's probably in B tier as well. You know, I think that's fair for the remake. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, honestly. It's definitely not as good as the first movie, but you know, it's just slightly worse, I would say. Now let's move on to the TV show, and people are probably watching this like, oh man, what the fuck is this tier list? Evil Dead remake and B tier? Are you crazy? Yeah, trust me on that. It's actually good. I enjoyed it, okay, and you know, you can go make your own tier list if you don't like my opinion on Evil Dead stuff. Okay, so we have season 1 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. Now, this was really fucking good. I really liked season 1. I have a podcast on my channel where we did a rewatch podcast. It's called Dead Eye Talk. You guys should go check that out. We review every single episode of season 1. I haven't done season 2 yet. If there's enough demand for it from enough people, I will do it. It's very time consuming doing something like that. It's a whole like 24-hour process of watching it, writing stuff down, reading it out, recording the podcast, editing the podcast, putting it all, you know, it's such a long process that for my time, it wasn't worth it for the gains that I was seeing. Despite it being a really fun moment of the channel doing Dead Eye Talk, I wish a lot more people got more involved with it. So again, that's open to you guys, really, if it comes back or not. But anyways, let's review Evil Dead 1. Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1. Probably A tier for me. I think it's better than Army of Darkness, obviously. For me, at least. I wouldn't say. Look, there's some really good stuff in that series. I think the finale lets it down a little bit in the first season, should I say? I think the finale lets it down just a little bit, but the acting, the scenery, the comedy, everything is there. The soundtrack is amazing. The cinematography that they do, the shots that they get as well. You know, like I said, just watch the Dead Eye Talk podcast. It's so worth watching that, because I go into background stuff, behind the scenes things, and you know, reading and talking about the directors and you know who directed this episode, and we go into detail about them as well. But you know, just going through season 1, it's just you're seeing Ash after all these years. He's like an old man, and you know, just kind of bringing it back to the screen, and they do it in such a good way as well. You know, they don't really do a lot of exposition. They keep it clean. They keep it fast. They keep it enjoyable. And despite there only being 30-minute episodes, I think they are they're well paced. Some of them, and some of them, you know, you're like, oh, do we really need this episode? But yeah, there's so many iconic moments in season 1. I think it belongs there. So we're on to season 2 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'm going to put that in S tier. I think that is probably the best season of the TV show. You've got all the characters established now. You've got Ball introduced into it as well. You've got Ashy Slashy there. Again, there's just so many more memorable moments from season 2, and it's got the very big 80s vibe about season 2 that I really enjoy as well. Again, with the soundtrack. Not saying that season 1 didn't have that, but season 2 really brought that out a lot more. And there's just a lot more gore, a lot more action in season 2 that just makes it way more enjoyable. And again, the performances of some of the villains, again, like Ball and stuff, and the Deadites, like, it's just so good. Season 2, it really is, and that's going in S tier for me. Evil Dead Rise, dog water immediately. I fucking hated this movie. So many people come at me and tell me in the chat, comments everywhere. I have never sat and watched an Evil Dead movie and scrolled on my phone as much as I did on my, like, while watching Evil Dead Rise. Okay, I don't normally pick up my phone and scroll while I'm watching movies and stuff at all. I haven't done that on any of the other Evil Dead stuff. Literally just this one. Like, I could not get through it. I watched it all somehow. I don't know how. But it was just so bad. It really was. Hear me out, okay? Every time somebody says Evil Dead Rise was great, they either talk about Alyssa Sutherland's performance or the hallway scene. That's it. That's like the two reasons I get why Evil Dead Rise was good. And that it's a good horror movie. It is a good horror movie, but it's not a good Evil Dead movie. That's what I keep saying over and over again. I'm not this type of person that says it needs to have Bruce Campbell in it all the time. It needs to be at the cabin. That's just not true, because look, I enjoyed Army Darkness. You're not in the cabin there. Of course, Bruce Campbell's in it, but I enjoyed the remake, you know? And again, that is at the cabin, but, you know, Bruce Campbell isn't in it, technically, until the end. But with Evil Dead Rise, it was just so obvious and the terrible plot of how they get the Necronomicon. And I remember watching the trailer years ago before it came out. And they're like, talks to the kid, and I can't remember the kid's name exactly, but he goes, how did you get hold of this book? I found it. That's what we got on the trailer. I thought the dialogue was pretty awful. We're going to dissect it a little bit. So they find the Necronomicon in a cracked open vault in the car park of their high-rise tower building. Okay. Now, it's already an issue there, because, you know, vaults are, like, usually surrounded by steel walls. Even if it is an old vault, they usually still put, you know, steel around it. But yeah, an earthquake goes off, and then they somehow can just get into this vault and then get the Necronomicon, and that's just terrible. You know, I think there should have been a better plot of how they got hold of the Necronomicon there. And then, you know, there's some cool stuff attached to Evil Dead Rise, where I'm not saying that some things were just, you know, I shouldn't glaze over the good stuff, obviously, but there's good things attached to it where it kind of talks more about the multiple Necronomicons, you know, that kind of thing, and how, you know, this could be a different Evil Dead universe. And, you know, we are going to be getting a new Evil Dead called Evil Dead Burns, I believe it was called. So hopefully that'll be better than Evil Dead Rise. But that's how they get hold of Necronomicon. There's so many shots in the movie as well. Like, at the start of the movie, it's like they purposely put a camera, okay, and they purposely do a camera shot on a pair of scissors under the sofa. Oh, I wonder why. Could that come into effect later on into the movie? You know, this is stupid stuff like that that really pissed me off of that movie. And this Beth trying to do the cheesy Ash one-liners at the end, and the Resident Evil fucking boss, or should I say, it looks more like something from the Rimmer clones from Red Dwarf, where they all merge together. It's just fucking terrible, you know. And you got Alyssa Sutherland there, her character, and she's like, she shouts at her kids of like, hey, you're not supposed to use the elevator during the earthquake or after an earthquake. And then like 2 seconds later, she goes into the elevator after the earthquake and then gets possessed. And then there's loads of blood. But yeah, that's my take on Evil Dead Rise. Apart, you know, I think it started off pretty solid, and then it went fucking terrible. They're trying to like rush these characters' backstories into it. They're trying to do so much stuff with it, and then, you know, it's kind of all over the place, because you see the bit of the cabin at the start, and then you're going over to these characters, and you're like, who the fuck are these people? And then it kind of makes sense at the end who they are, but it was a mess. Definitely the worst thing that I've watched in Evil Dead related. And now let's move on to season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and that is probably gonna go into... I'll probably put it in B tier. No C tier stuff here. B tier for season 3 Ash vs. Evil Dead. It wasn't the best of the show, to be honest. again, it was a bit repetitive with the villain being Ruby again. But you know, there's some establishment in season 3, and I don't know. There's some really good stuff. You get to see, obviously, the I forget what's called, like the Deadlands, as I would call it. Where they go there, you get to see all of that stuff play out in the Deadlands. I don't know. There's some memorable stuff from season 3, but I don't think it's really warranted to go any higher than B tier. And the main thing is the ending of season 3 leaves you on such a big cliffhanger that everybody knows that season 4 never came out, and it's a big disappointment. Because the way it was going, the TV show, I think season 4, and I think everybody still wants to see what is going to happen after that. You know, it's still leaving everybody there like, what the fuck has happened after season 3, and what was going to happen in season 4, where it was going to be like a Fallout style show. You know, then you know it's going to be like a wasteland apocalyptic style. And there's some good memorable moments in season 3. I don't remember a lot of it. I've seen, it's probably my least watched season. I've seen season 1 a lot. I've seen season 2 a lot. And when I start watching season 3, that's when I start getting a bit, you know, burnt out from the TV show. Is season 3 midway. I just think there was a bit too many characters, despite it being Ruby, Ash, Kelly, Pablo, and so I still felt like it was spreading itself. You had Dalton, you had, you know, the Dark Ones appearing. There's just a lot of stuff going on that kind of brought it down a little bit for me. But it's still a solid season. It's still a good watch. But yeah, that is probably it. I'm going to wrap it up there for my Evil Dead TV show and movies tier list. And when Evil Dead Burns comes out, or whatever the hell it's called, we'll do another tier list and we'll add it in there. But I appreciate you all watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. You know, it's been a while since I've done a tier list, but you know, there's a lot of stuff, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. I'm going to start doing more tier lists like this. I thought I'd start with Evil Dead, obviously, because it's something that I've watched all the media of. You know, I'm trying to get into reading the comics as well, so maybe we'll do some more reviews about the comics and stuff at some point. You know, I kind of want to branch out more in a horror space rather than it just being gaming related all the time, if that makes sense. You know, we'll do things like we'll rate every Resident Evil movie, we'll rate every Halloween movie, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, we'll sit and do more of these tier lists, and you're just gonna have to give me time to watch everything, because I haven't watched every single horror movie out there. You know, I've only watched the first Saw movie, and it'll be fun to review all the Saw movies as well in a tier list. So if you want to see more tier lists like this, hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts on the tier list. Where would you personally put things? Don't get angry, okay? People seem to get very fucking upset on a tier list. Like, this is a definitive opinion out there that this is how Evil Dead stacks in how good things are and how bad things are. It's not, okay? You can go do your own tier list, but I just like having a little discussion. So if you want to be part of that discussion, leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Pixels, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.